Welcome back, and thank you for tuning into Midnight Affairs Tales. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know what part of the world you are watching from right now. Let us know in the comments. Now let's dive into today's story, Chapter 1. She called him baby in her sleep. The whisper broke the silence like a gunshot. Dean, baby. Colby Rains blinked in the dark, staring at the ceiling. The clock glowed 2:41 a.m. beside the bed. His wife's arm lay across his chest. Her breath was steady, peaceful, but her voice, that name, echoed. He didn't move. Dean? He counted to 5, 10. Still didn't move. The air conditioner kicked on with a hum. Outside, rain tapped gently against the window. Inside, his mind was a war zone. She'd never said that name in bed before. He turned his head slowly. Lyndon slept like a stone, unaware of the nuclear shift that had just detonated in his chest. Her lips twitched slightly. Still dreaming. Still with Dean. Colby's hands, the same ones that once disarmed bombs and carried wounded men out of crossfire, now trembled. Not from fear, from realization. He got up without a sound. Downstairs, he stood barefoot on the kitchen tile, staring at the coffee machine he didn't turn on. His phone buzzed, a routine security notification. He ignored it. Back upstairs, Lyndon rolled over onto his side of the bed. Dean, she mumbled again, softer this time. Colby's jaw clenched. He stared at her silhouette. This wasn't a hunch anymore. This was proof. And Colby never acted without proof. But he wouldn't scream. He wouldn't accuse. He'd wait. He'd observe. And when the truth stood naked in the light, he'd burn everything down methodically. For now, he whispered back into the dark. Who the hell is Dean? Morning came with routine. Lyndon kissed his cheek, smiled like always, and said, early meeting, babe. You'll drop Harper off. Of course, Colby replied, calm. Watching. She wore her black blazer. Hair perfect. Lipstick untouched. Not a single crack on the mask. Harper, 15 and quick-eyed, looked up from her cereal. Mom seems extra today. Yeah, Colby muttered. She does. By noon, he was parked 2 blocks from Lyndon's office building in Portland's business district. Her company badge scanned her in at 8:17 a.m. His retired military access let him pull up open city traffic cams, legal ones. He watched her enter. Alone. But at 10:03, Dean Halbridge walked in. Slick. Confident. Top-floor access. CEO. Colby clenched his jaw. His instincts weren't theories anymore. They were confirmations. Every tilt of Lyndon's head, every late-night strategy session, every damn conference. He needed more. Harder proof. That evening, when Harper handed him the old iPad, the one Lyndon used before upgrading, Colby almost brushed it off. Until Harper said, it's still connected to Mom's cloud. Photos. Messages. Files. Don't go through it if you're not ready, she whispered. Colby hesitated, then opened the Photos app. He tapped a folder named Work Meetings. The first video loaded. Lyndon, in a hotel room, wearing nothing but Dean's tie around her neck. Colby didn't blink, didn't flinch. He watched, jaw locked, until the screen went black. Harper said nothing, just stood in the doorway, her eyes guarded but steady. Colby looked up at her. Pack a bag, he said quietly. You and me, we're going to fix this. The iPad was old, cracked at the corner. A forgotten relic buried under junk mail and tech cables in the hall drawer. Harper had been looking for a charger when she found it. I didn't mean to open it, she told Colby. It just unlocked. He nodded, silent, scrolling through the contents now like a bomb technician. He was trained to keep steady hands, steady breath, but nothing trained him for this kind of detonation. Texts, photos, videos, all time-stamped, all explicit. Lyndon had cataloged her affair like a diary of conquest. Colby's thumb hovered over a message. Lyndon, your hands on my throat today? Still thinking about it. I want it again, Dean. Can't wait for the board meeting tomorrow. He exhaled slowly, leaned back, and looked at Harper sitting across from him at the kitchen table. Her knees were pulled to her chest, hoodie sleeves covering her hands. Why didn't you go to her first? She asked. Because if I did, she'd lie, he said. She's already too good at it. You're not going to hit her or something, right? Colby gave a bitter smile. No, I'm going to outthink her. That's worse. That night, After Lyndon fell asleep, Colby sat in the garage, the iPad beside him, a notebook in his lap. Planning. He didn't just want to expose her. He wanted her and Dean to feel what he did. Not with fists, with collapse, with silence, with evidence. He looked at the camera feeds he'd installed years ago for security. He'd forgotten some even existed. But now, they'd become his front line. Because if this was war, he wasn't just fighting to destroy them. He was fighting to protect his daughter's story before they rewrote it. Colby sat in the garage like it was a war room. He played each video twice, once to analyze, the second to memorize. Lyndon was careless. Dean, even more so. One video had Dean adjusting his tie, laughing. "Your husband still thinks you're hosting webinars?" Lyndon pulled him closer. "He's an idiot, but useful." That one burned. Another showed Dean in her office, midday, blinds half closed. Lyndon pulled her blouse down with one hand, checking her reflection in a nearby glass. They were bold, shameless, and consistent. Every Thursday afternoon for the last 3 months. Colby cataloged every timestamp, location, outfit. His discipline kicked in. Emotions were buried under procedure. That's what the Corps taught him. Don't react. Respond. He wasn't just watching. He was building a file. He copied the videos to a secure drive, encrypted everything. He backed it up twice. Then he began a timeline. Next, he called in a favor, an old buddy who worked in private cyber forensics. No names. Just a question. If someone at a company was laundering money or involved in corporate fraud, how would you quietly trace it? The friend answered without hesitation. Follow the reimbursements. HR expenses. Dummy LLCs. If you know the names, I can start digging. Colby gave him 2. Dean Halbridge. Lyndon Raines. By midnight, Harper came into the garage. "You've been out here for 5 hours. He looked up. "You okay?" "I'm scared." Her voice didn't waver. He paused, then handed her a flash drive. "Hold this. If anything ever happens to me, give it to the press." She stared at it like it was a weapon. "It's not just about what they did to us," he said. "It's about what they're getting away with." The morning fog hung low as Colby drove Harper to school. She stared out the window, silent. Her headphones were in, but no music played. He gripped the steering wheel tighter than needed. At the red light, she finally spoke. "Do you still love her?" He kept his eyes forward. "I love the woman I married. But not who she is now? She's not who she used to be." He said it low, like he wasn't sure if he was telling her or himself. Harper nodded slowly. "So, what are we doing? Are we leaving?" Colby shook his head. "No, we're not running." He pulled over just before the school gates. Students walked past, laughing. Normal lives. Harper didn't move. "What's the plan then?" she asked. Colby looked at her. Really looked. She was young, but sharp, the kind of sharp that came from seeing too much too soon. "We fix it," he said. "Not for her. Not even for me. For you." She swallowed. Her eyes brimmed, but she didn't blink. "You think you can win?" "I know I can end it," he said. "And I'll do it without a single lie." She built her world on lies. "I'm tearing it down with truth." Harper nodded and stepped out. Before closing the door, she leaned in. "Don't let her break you." As he drove off, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. No voicemail. No message. He checked the timestamp. Exactly 9:17 a.m., same time Dean had entered Lyndon's office the day before. Colby's instincts screamed. They were getting careless, which meant they were confident, which meant they were vulnerable. And he wasn't just watching anymore. He was moving. That night, Lyndon came home glowing. Colby was in the kitchen slicing vegetables. Controlled. Focused. She leaned against the counter. Promotion came through. HR director. Full access now. She waited for a reaction. "Congrats," he said, without looking up. She smiled. "Dinner smells great." He smiled too. "New recipe. Thought I'd try something bold." Lyndon set down her phone on the table. It buzzed once. Then again. A third time. She flipped it over, face down. Colby caught that. Memorized it. At dinner, she talked. About office politics. A new intern. Supply chain headaches. Colby nodded, listened. Pretended. Every word she said built his case further. She didn't know she was under surveillance now. Every text, every call, every meeting logged and time-stamped. But it wasn't just about evidence anymore. He needed leverage, timing, and exposure. After dinner, Lyndon showered. Colby opened her phone. Locked. But Harper had already mirrored the iCloud. He checked recent locations. One pinged a hotel just 5 miles away, 4:17 p.m. He didn't confront her. He laid in bed, lights off. Lyndon curled beside him, warm, familiar. "You okay?" she asked. "Tired," he said. "Big week coming." "Yeah." She placed a soft kiss on his shoulder. "I love you." His heart didn't move. Not a beat. "I know." She fell asleep within minutes. Colby stared at the ceiling, breathing slow. He had everything he needed. Surveillance. A motive. A digital trail. A daughter who knew the truth. Now he needed one more thing. Timing. Because the storm wasn't coming. He was the storm. Monday morning, Lyndon walked into the office like she owned it, and now she practically did. New title, private office, the corner glass view. Her heels clicked against the polished floor like a warning bell. A few coworkers offered polite congratulations. Most kept their distance. Dean Halbridge met her with a crooked grin. "Queen of HR now, huh?" She rolled her eyes playfully. "I earned it." Dean leaned in, voice low. "We still on for Thursday?" She glanced toward the hallway cameras. "Don't be stupid." He chuckled. "Come on. They're not even recording." I made sure. But he was wrong. Because Fiona, his assistant, had secretly rerouted the feeds weeks ago, and Colby had access. Back at home, Colby sat with Harper in the garage, the monitors glowing in front of them. "There," Harper said, zooming in on Lyndon's office. Dean's hand grazed her waist before she pushed it off. "It's all fake professionalism." Colby watched the body language. Lyndon wasn't just playing along. She was managing him. "She's got control over more than I thought," Colby muttered. "She's not being used. She's in this for power." Harper folded her arms. "You still think this is just about sex?" "No," he said. "It's about leverage. They're both hiding something bigger." That evening, Colby went digging. HR documents, employee complaints, hush payments, some under Lyndon's digital signature, and one note buried deep in a closed file. Employee terminated after sexual misconduct claim. No external reporting. NDA enforced. Colby leaned back, jaw tightening. She didn't just cheat. She protected predators. And now she was one. He stared at her profile on the company website. HR director. Smiling. Respected. But soon, she'd be the headline. And she wouldn't be able to hide behind a desk anymore. Colby sat at his workbench, blueprints spread across the table like a war map. He tapped his pen beside Lyndon's schedule. Her lunch breaks are always staggered. Dean leaves his office 10 minutes before she does. They're keeping it from overlapping. They're staging their affair, Harper said, making it look like they don't see each other. Exactly. Colby pointed to the office schematics he pulled from public records. But the server room has blind spots. I'll need eyes in there. Harper raised a brow. You're planning recon? I'm planning exposure. And I need your help for phase 1. She nodded. Let's ghost wire her phone. Harper plugged in a new flash drive and got to work. She wasn't just good, she was brilliant. In under an hour, she'd installed a silent cloud sync to Lyndon's messages, location data, audio access, and app logs. No alerts. No trace. She'll never know, Harper said, spinning the chair toward him. Everything she does, we'll see it live. Colby stared at his daughter. Part of him hated involving her. But the other part, the part that saw how calm she was, knew she'd already made peace with it. She's your mother, he said quietly. Harper looked away. No, she was. Before she threw us away for a man who calls her in hotels. Silence hung heavy between them. Colby broke it. Let's finish this. Later that night, Colby parked 2 blocks from Lyndon's hotel meetup. Through the wire, he heard everything. Dean, no cameras here. We're safe. Lyndon, you said that last time. Dean, hey, don't get paranoid. Lyndon, I'm not paranoid. I'm prepared. Colby smiled coldly in the car, fingers tightening on the wheel. You're wrong about that, he whispered. I'm the one who's prepared. Tuesday morning, Colby sat at a cafe downtown, black coffee in one hand, his laptop in the other. The screen filled with real-time pings, Lyndon's emails, calendar updates, search history. She just typed, "Can private text be subpoenaed in divorce?" Colby took a slow sip. She was starting to feel it. Across town, Lyndon walked briskly through her office, barely acknowledging anyone. Her phone vibrated, anonymous message. "You should be more careful about what you say in elevators." She stopped mid-step. Heart rate spiked. Eyes darted to the hallway camera, just like before. But this time, her smile vanished. She opened her texts. Nothing. Opened her email. Nothing. Just that single message. No name. No number. Back at the cafe, Colby saved the surveillance footage from the elevator yesterday, Dean whispering something into her ear. She had laughed. Now, she looked like she couldn't breathe. Harper called him. She's panicking. Search histories all over the place. She just looked up how to check for spyware. Don't worry, Colby said. She's not tech-savvy. She'll delete the wrong file and lock herself out. He was right. By 11:47 a.m., her company login failed. By noon, she was on the phone with IT. Colby was listening to every word. Something's wrong. My emails aren't syncing. My screen froze. No, I didn't install anything. He muted the feed and looked at Harper on the video call. Phase 1. Destabilize. Done. Harper nodded, serious. Phase 2. Colby leaned in. We leak. Slowly. Control drops. HR files. Meeting videos. Just enough to cause questions. And Phase 3. He closed the laptop. Let her bury herself trying to fix it. Because now, every move Lyndon made would be watched. Every step would be recorded. And every lie would come with a countdown. The sky over Portland had turned gray by the time Dean found the envelope on his desk. No return address. Just his name in all caps. He glanced around, closed the blinds, then opened it. Inside were 3 printed photos. The first, him and Lyndon in the elevator. Close. Intimate. The second, a granny still from the hotel hallway, his hand on her lower back. The third, a freeze frame from the video. Him in bed, face clear. No room for denial. He dropped the envelope like it burned. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. One message. You're not untouchable. Dean paced the office, checked the door, then grabbed his phone and called Lyndon. It's happening, he snapped. We've been compromised. Lyndon's voice crackled through the line. What? By who? I don't know. Someone's got everything, photos, footage, even the room. You told me there were no cameras. There weren't. Dean paused. Then how the hell did they get this? Across the city, Colby watched the call transcript feed in through the ghost wire. Every word locked. Every panic spike timed. He smiled, slow and deliberate. In the garage, Harper watched her father lean back in the chair like a sniper settling his breathing. They're rattled, she said. Exactly, Colby muttered. That's when they start making mistakes. At dinner, Lyndon barely touched her food. She smiled too much. Laughed too loud. Fake. Tense. Colby passed her the salad. Rough day. She froze for a split second. Then, nothing I couldn't handle. He nodded slowly, holding her gaze. Then said it, calm, direct, cold. I know everything. She blinked. What? I said, I know. He stood up and took his plate to the sink. Behind him, silence. Not a breath. Not a word. The war had officially gone loud. The garage no longer looked like a garage. The Jeep had been parked on the street for days. The floor was now carpeted with cables, monitors mounted on both walls, and a massive whiteboard covered in timelines, connections, and red marker arrows. Harper called it the Hive. Colby just called it necessary. Every monitor showed something live, a different hallway in Lyndon's building, a burner phone screen mirrored to track Dean's calls, cloud logs updating in real time. On one monitor, a meeting room, Lyndon sat opposite a younger woman, visibly tense. Colby zoomed in on the company badge clipped to the woman's blazer. Jessica Barnes, he read aloud. Intern. New hire. Harper pulled up her HR file. Applied 3 months ago. Hired by Lyndon. On paper, maybe, Colby said. But the recommendation came from Dean. They watched. Lyndon spoke low, controlled. Jessica didn't look comfortable. Then the audio feed caught it. You're not being let go, Lyndon said. You're being reassigned. No, you don't need to talk to legal. There's no need to escalate this. Dean didn't mean any harm. Colby paused the feed. He what? Harper's voice cracked. Colby closed the laptop and stood. This is it, he said. They're burying harassment complaints. You're going public? Not yet. He grabbed the flash drive labeled HR Suppression, Tier 1. I'm going to test how fast the company protects itself. At 3 a.m., he uploaded a batch of redacted files, just enough to cause unrest, to a whistleblower Dropbox connected to 3 major local news outlets. He added one sentence. Ask HR why 4 interns quit in 30 days. Then hit send. Colby didn't flinch. Because chaos was phase 2. Lyndon arrived to work the next morning with her heels sharper, makeup flawless, but her eyes betrayed her. The buzz in the building was instant. Did you see the leak? Some HR mess. Something about interns. People are saying a lawsuit's coming. Dean's door was closed. Locked. Lyndon checked her inbox, 42 new emails. Most from legal. 2 from corporate PR. 1 from a blocked sender. Congratulations on the promotion. Shame it won't last. Her stomach flipped. She stepped into the bathroom and locked the door behind her. Colby watched from the live feed. Lyndon stared at herself in the mirror, breathing uneven, hands gripping the sink. Harper leaned into the monitor. She's cracking. Not yet, Colby said, but she's close. At lunch, Colby walked into a country club 5 miles outside the city. He wore a clean jacket, dark jeans, civilian, but precise. Dean was there, alone, eating steak like he wasn't collapsing inside. Colby approached the table slowly. Dean looked up, confused. Colby, you remember me? Dean smirked. Sure. We met at the holiday party. Lyndon's husband. Colby smiled coolly. That's right. He pulled out a chair and sat. Dean raised a brow. You here for lunch? No. Just wanted to see how you're holding up. Excuse me. Colby leaned in. You're good at covering your tracks. But you got lazy. And now it's all coming undone. Dean froze, fork midair. Colby stood. I'm not here to threaten you. Just to watch you squirm. Dean opened his mouth, but Colby leaned close and whispered, I know everything. Then walked away. Outside, he exhaled slowly, pulled his phone, and texted Harper. Send the second wave. It was time to turn whispers into fire. The moment Colby walked out of the country club, he didn't look back. Dean's face was already etched in his memory, lips twitching, color draining from his face, eyes darting like a man being hunted. Colby didn't need to raise his voice. He was the threat, and Dean had finally realized it. He got into his truck, turned on the hands-free, and said, Harper, did it go through? Yup, she replied. It's live. 3 HR complaints. 1 former employee's resignation letter. And a spreadsheet showing payout patterns tied to Lyndon's signature, all posted anonymously on a leak forum that journalists watched like hawks. Colby pulled onto the road. They're gonna go full denial, Harper added. But it's too late. Back at the office, Lyndon's phone buzzed nonstop. Subject, internal review subject, requesting your statement regarding allegations subject. Urgent. HR documents leaked. She stood in the break room, numb, coffee untouched in her hand. People whispered around her now. Doors didn't open as easily. Coworkers didn't make eye contact. Dean refused to meet her gaze in the hallway. His door remained locked. By 3 p.m., her security badge failed to grant access to the executive floor. She buzzed reception. Hey, it's Lyndon. Can you let me through? Pause. Sorry, you've been restricted to level 3 per legal. Her hand shook as she lowered the badge. She wasn't in control anymore. Back at home, Colby grilled chicken like it was any other day. Calm. Measured. Harper sat beside him. You think they'll hit back? They will, he said. Cornered animals always do. She stared at the flames licking up under the grill. What if they drag us down with them? Colby looked at her, eyes steady. Then we keep standing. They built their world on power and secrets. We built ours on truth. I like our odds. He flipped the meat, smoke rising into the sky like a signal fire. The war was no longer quiet, and the world was about to watch it burn. Mara Connolly didn't deal in fluff. She didn't write about bake sales or office gossip. She hunted corruption, especially the kind that wore suits and smiled through press releases. So when she received the anonymous tip, her gut knew it wasn't noise. The files were clean. Metadata intact. Timestamps consistent. The documents detailed hush money payouts, manipulated HR reports, and a dozen reassigned female employees, all buried by Lyndon Raines. Mara's hands itched with adrenaline. She called her editor. I need front page. This isn't speculation. This is systemic abuse, and it's been sanctioned from the top down. The editor hesitated. That company's a major ad buyer. Mara didn't flinch. Then cut their check. We're running this. Meanwhile, Colby stood outside a flower shop with Harper, pretending to browse while watching Dean's car parked across the street. I thought we were done with surveillance, Harper muttered. We are, Colby said. But this is recon. Dean exited a coffee shop, talking rapidly on the phone, pacing, sweating, shaking his head. Colby noted every tick. He's unraveling, he said. Harper squinted. Think he'll run? Not yet. He's too arrogant. Back home, Colby got a call from an unlisted number. This is Mara Connolly, the voice said. I think you know why I'm calling. He didn't respond immediately. I don't care who you are, she continued, but if you're the one leaking these, I need you to keep them coming. This isn't just gossip. This is a cover-up that could go federal. Colby's voice was low. I'm not done yet. When I am, you'll get everything. Then he hung up. Harper raised an eyebrow. You trust her? No, Colby said, but I trust her hunger. And he knew. Once Mara had the scent, she wouldn't stop until blood hit the page. Lyndon sat in her office, the walls suddenly feeling smaller than they ever had. Her screens buzzed with notifications she didn't open. Legal memos. Staff questions. A polite but firm HR freeze notice. And worst of all, a scheduled compliance audit. She blinked at the calendar. Thursday, 9 a.m. Compliance. Someone inside the company had triggered it. She tried calling Dean. Voicemail. She tried his assistant. Fiona, it's Lyndon. I need to speak with Dean. Now. I'll pass the message, Fiona replied, voice flat. Something was off. She opened her laptop again, scrolling through emails. The faces in the office hallway walked slower now. Eyes lingered on her door. A few didn't even try to hide it. She opened her drawer, pulled out a bottle of pills, stared at them, then shoved it back shut. Outside, in a black SUV parked down the street, Colby watched the live feed. She's spiraling, Harper said. Exactly where we want her. Colby opened his tablet and began reviewing Mara's early draft article. His name wouldn't be mentioned. Just an anonymous source with internal access. Perfect. He flipped to the surveillance tab and watched Lyndon take her bag, walk quickly down the hallway, and enter the bathroom. Audio spiked, sharp breathing, a whimper. She was cracking. Colby zoomed in. Her face when I said compliance audit, he murmured, shaking his head. She thought she was untouchable. Harper turned to him. And now? Colby leaned back, arms crossed. Now she's about to find out what it feels like to be watched. Because for years, Lyndon made decisions behind closed doors, protected by titles and silence. But not anymore. Now, every step she took was under a microscope, and the countdown had already started. It was subtle, unmarked, and carefully placed, wedged beneath Lyndon's wallet in the zippered pocket of her designer tote. She didn't notice it until late evening. Colby had grilled steak, Harper had vanished to her room, and Lyndon was heading out to meet an old college friend. Colby knew the lie. He'd already mapped her route to Dean's condo. But he said nothing. Be back late, he asked, rinsing his plate. She flinched, just slightly. Probably, she replied, pulling on her coat. You okay with dinner tomorrow? I might be working late. He nodded. As she reached the door, she paused. Thanks for being so chill lately. Colby smiled gently. Of course. Trust works both ways, right? That made her freeze for a second. A flicker. Then she opened the door and left. In the car, Lyndon dug through her purse, looking for her lip gloss. Her fingers found the envelope. No name. No note. It was a cold, calculated message. He'd been watching her far longer than she realized. Colby installed it 3 years ago, back when home break-ins in their neighborhood were spiking. A discreet, motion-triggered cam embedded behind the decorative molding in the study wall. It fed silently into a cloud drive, meant to record during the day when no one was home. Colby hadn't thought about it in over a year, until Harper brought up something strange. She used to take calls in the study, Harper said one night, sitting cross-legged on the floor of the surveillance room. Not Zooms. Just calls. Talking low. Colby blinked. I never checked that camera. He pulled up the folder. Hundreds of videos, all timestamped, most empty. Until one, 4 months ago. Lyndon, pacing the study. On the call, Dean. I told you not to call me on this line, she hissed. I can't keep covering for you. Dean's voice, muffled, but clear. You don't have a choice. You approved those files. You signed off. If this leaks, it's not just me. It's you. She stopped walking. Her face hardened. You promised this would stay buried. It was until your husband started acting like Jason Bourne. She muttered something under her breath. Then louder, he's just suspicious. He doesn't have anything. Colby hit pause. Wrong, he said under his breath. He looked at Harper. This isn't just cheating. It's conspiracy. She's in deeper than I thought. Harper leaned back, eyes wide. So what now? We go for the kill shot. That night, Colby copied the footage to a second drive, labeled it HR leak, obstruction evidence. Then he slid open a drawer and took out something he hadn't touched in years, his military-grade voice recorder. It was time to capture the last piece. Because once they heard her lie in real time, there'd be no denying what she'd become. The receptionist barely looked up when Fiona passed the security desk. She didn't need to swipe her badge anymore. She had the override codes and Lyndon's schedule memorized. Fiona moved like someone invisible. She'd been watching, waiting. And when the anonymous email hit her inbox last week, with clips of Dean's past, she knew what she had to do. Now she sat across from Colby at a quiet diner on the edge of town, a folder clutched tightly in her hand. You sure you want to do this? Colby asked. Fiona's eyes were tired, but calm. They used me. I've watched interns cry in the elevator after meetings with Dean. I reported it. Lyndon buried it. She protected him. Colby nodded. I believe you. She slid the folder across. Emails. Audio files. Expense reports. I kept copies. Just in case. You don't survive long in their world if you don't have an escape hatch. Colby opened the folder, eyes scanning rapidly. His jaw clenched. Jesus, he muttered. They paid off a temp's hospital bill. She refused to sign the NDA. So Dean pushed her down the stairs, said she fell. Colby's stomach turned. Fiona leaned in. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it so I can sleep again. He nodded. That's more than enough. She slid a small recorder across the table. Last week, Lyndon and Dean. They're planning to hide assets. Dean's moving cash into shell companies. Colby's face stayed calm. But inside, every muscle had tensed like steel wire. This wasn't just HR corruption anymore. This was federal crime territory. Keep your head down, he said quietly. You're not a target. Not yet. Fiona stood. I never wanted blood, she said. Just justice. Colby pocketed the recorder and watched her leave. Then whispered, you'll get both. Dean was unraveling, and Colby didn't even need to touch him to make it happen. It started with the anonymous emails. At first, just rumors. Hints. Check your internal audits. Do you know where your HR director's loyalty really lies? Your golden boy's hands aren't clean. Then came the edits. Harper, working quietly behind Colby in the surveillance room, had intercepted internal memos. She slightly altered a few before sending them back into circulation. Small things. Names. Dates. Meeting times. Enough to make Dean paranoid. I didn't schedule this. He snapped at Fiona in the hallway. You did, she replied calmly, showing him his own calendar. You approved it 2 days ago. I don't remember that. Later, a call from legal. We received the files you uploaded. I didn't upload anything. Dean barked. But they were tagged with your credentials, sir. Dean's face turned pale. This is a setup. Someone's in the system. And that was exactly the point. Colby had flipped their strategy from exposure to manipulation. Not to just ruin Dean, but to make him implode from the inside. Meanwhile, Lyndon noticed Dean withdrawing, ignoring calls, canceling meetings. She confronted him in the office kitchen. What's going on with you? Dean glanced around. You didn't tell anyone about the payout accounts, did you? Of course not. He stepped closer. Are you sure? Lyndon narrowed her eyes. You think I'm behind this? Dean didn't answer. He just walked away. Colby watched it all from the screen, arms crossed, unblinking. Gaslight protocol, he muttered. Stage complete. Now what? Harper asked. Colby didn't turn. Now we turned the mirror on her. By Wednesday, the whispers became questions. And the questions became murmurs loud enough to echo through the glass walls of the office. Mara Connolly's article dropped at 9 a.m. sharp. Headline: Behind the Promotions. The HR Web of Silence. The piece detailed anonymous accounts, screenshots of redacted documents, and blurred faces of women who left the company within months of being hired. Words like suppression, retaliation, and fraudulent hiring cover-ups were splashed across every digital newsfeed in Portland. It didn't name Lyndon outright, but the descriptions were unmistakable. At 9:12 a.m., Lyndon stormed into her office, slammed the door, and locked it. She didn't respond to emails. She didn't answer calls. By 10 o'clock, a PR representative and a legal advisor were outside her door, knocking gently. Lyndon, we need a statement before the noon presser. No answer. Inside, Lyndon sat on the floor, knees to her chest, her phone in one hand, and the article pulled up on her laptop. Her name wasn't mentioned, but the pieces were there. One woman described being reassigned after raising concerns. Another mentioned a female director dismissing her report as a misunderstanding. Every word sliced deeper than a knife. Colby and Harper watched the security feed from the break room camera, just barely catching the sliver of Lyndon's door. Colby zoomed in. Is she crying? Harper asked. She's drowning, Colby replied. Outside the office, Dean approached, pressed his hand against the door. Lyndon, we need to talk. Still no response. She was folding in. Harper looked uneasy. Is this enough? Colby didn't blink. Not yet. Because destruction wasn't the goal. Understanding was. She had to see exactly what she'd become before the whole city did. By noon, it wasn't just Portland talking, it was national. Mara's story had been picked up by 3 major outlets. Social media exploded. HR director implicated in cover-up. Company accused of silencing harassment victims. Anonymous leaks point to internal rot. The company issued a statement. Flat. Defensive. An internal review is ongoing. At this time, we have no reason to believe executive misconduct has occurred. No names. No accountability. But the internet didn't need formal charges. Screenshots flew like wildfire. Forums identified Lyndon based on her photo, job title, and LinkedIn. Reddit threads launched by noon. She was always fake. My friend worked there, said the HR lady was ruthless. Is she the wife of that Marine guy? This is about to get wild. Lyndon didn't leave her office all day. She ate nothing. Spoke to no one. And when she finally opened her email, a message sat there waiting, timestamped precisely at noon. To Lyndon Rains, did you think silence would save you? Your husband didn't. See no name. Just an initial. But she knew. She opened her phone's GPS history. The study. The hotel. The HR server room. Every location she thought she'd hidden. She dropped the phone like it was toxic. Colby stood outside the building that evening, leaning against his truck, watching employees leave with boxes in their arms. The building was under audit lockdown. Harper called. It's happening. Half the board resigned. Lyndon's being relieved of duties until further notice. Dean's next. Colby didn't smile. He just whispered, good. Because this wasn't over. Not until Dean tried to run. And Colby made sure the law was waiting for him at the border. It was past midnight when Harper slid her USB drive into Colby's main system. No more shadows, she said softly. Colby watched her, not as a daughter anymore, but as someone carrying her own kind of war. Harper opened her own file, a private folder she hadn't shown him before. It held everything she'd quietly built while her father hunted from above. A fake internal email thread where Dean bragged about sleeping with HR. Chat screenshots forged with surgical precision. A short video clip, not real, but realistic, using AI lip sync. Dean, making a crude joke about interns being part of the benefits package. Colby stared at the screen. Where did you get this? I made it, Harper replied. I've been learning deepfake tech since she started lying to me. He hesitated. She added, you said no lies. But this isn't a lie. It's a mirror. It shows the kind of man he is. Colby leaned back, eyes unreadable. Your call, he said. This one's yours. Harper uploaded the file to 3 platforms: Twitter, TikTok, Reddit. She didn't label it with drama or clickbait. Just one line: "This is the man who hired my mom." By sunrise, the video had gone viral. Fiona texted, "The board's panicking. Press is demanding a live response. He's going to lose everything." Harper watched the comment count climb into the thousands. "I didn't want this," she whispered, "but I needed it." Colby stood behind her, placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "You didn't start this war," he said, "but you're the reason it ends. Because sometimes truth doesn't speak softly. Sometimes it roars." Dean arrived at his penthouse like a man returning from battle, suit wrinkled, tie loosened, palms damp with sweat. He poured himself a drink before checking the news. It was worse than he thought. The deepfake video had triggered a firestorm. HR forums exploded. Ex-employees were giving anonymous statements. His name trended on Twitter, not for brilliance, but for scandal. His company issued a temporary administrative leave announcement. But the worst came in a silent ding. He opened his banking app. Access denied. His personal savings, his investment portfolio, frozen. He tried the second account. Access denied. He dropped his phone. His attorney wouldn't answer. Fiona had stopped responding. Lyndon, once a shield, was now a liability under review. And then came the knock. Not loud, just firm. Dean opened the door slowly. A courier stood there, holding a single envelope. Dean signed, hands trembling, then tore it open. Inside, a formal letter of federal inquiry into embezzlement and internal corruption, a list of named individuals under investigation, and a separate letter from Colby himself, handwritten, plain. "I told you weren't untouchable. And I meant it." C.R. Dean sank into the couch. For the first time, he felt small. Outside, in a parked SUV, Colby stared at the building's lobby cam feed. Harper sat beside him, legs tucked under her. "He's going to try to run," she said. "Yeah," Colby replied. "But he's too late." He tapped the dash. A police scanner buzzed. Border alert had already been triggered. Dean wasn't just losing his reputation. He was about to lose everything else. The table was set for 3. Lyndon walked in from work, not that it was still her job, and paused when she saw the plates, the candles, the wine. "Celebrating something?" she asked. Colby didn't answer right away. Harper sat silently across from her. "Sit," Colby said. Lyndon glanced between them. "Is this about?" "It's the last time we eat together," Harper interrupted. Colby poured the wine. No one drank. He reached into his jacket and placed a tablet at the center of the table. Press play. First, the surveillance footage. Lyndon and Dean. Hotel. Office. Study. Then, the phone calls. The one where she lied about the miscarriage. The one where she begged Dean to make it disappear. Lyndon went pale. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just sat there, crumbling in silence. Colby leaned forward. "I'm not here to yell. I'm not here to fight. I just want you to understand the damage you've done." "I didn't think it would go this far," she whispered. "No," he replied. "You didn't think you'd get caught." Harper stood. "You didn't just break us. You rewrote who we were supposed to be." Lyndon looked at her daughter, eyes desperate. "Harper, I still love you." "You don't know what love is," she said. Colby rose last. "I filed the papers," he said. "Divorce. Clean. You get nothing." Lyndon's hands shook. "You'll regret this," she whispered. He nodded slowly. "Maybe. But at least I'll regret it with my soul intact." Then they walked out, leaving her alone at the table, surrounded by a feast of her own lies. And for the first time, Lyndon Raines had nothing to say. The house was dead quiet. Lyndon sat on the couch, wine glass untouched, face blank. Her phone buzzed again, missed calls, news alerts, a cease and desist order from the board's legal team. She didn't even flinch anymore. A ping. New message. Play this. Start to end. No skipping. Attached was a file. No title. No sender. She opened it. The screen lit up with a single image. Her. Hotel lobby. Dean beside her. A voice began playing, Colby's voice. "I never planned to destroy you, Lyndon. I just wanted the truth. But the deeper I looked, the darker it got. So now, you get to see what you really look like. The video unfolded like a confession booth. Cuts of her laughing with Dean, lying to Harper, shredding paperwork, erasing emails, her voice calling interns unstable, her signature on silencing payouts. Colby had woven it into a timeline. With music, with voiceovers, with pain. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He just showed the truth. By the end, Lyndon was shaking. Then the final frame, your daughter knows everything. And she still chose to walk away. She dropped the phone. Back at his cabin on the city's edge, Colby stared at the fire. Harper entered, hoodie on, a duffel at her side. She saw it. He nodded. Harper sat down beside him, voice soft. You really sent her everything? She needed to see it for herself. Silence. Then Harper turned to him. There's something you don't know. Colby frowned. What? She reached into her backpack, pulled out a second drive. I've been tracking you too. Colby didn't speak for a moment. He just stared at the drive in Harper's hand, small, black, humming like it carried a heartbeat. I needed to know how far you'd go, she said quietly. You were changing. You weren't you. His throat tightened. So you watch me? I mirrored your surveillance system weeks ago, Harper admitted. I saw when you made fake calls. The psychological stuff. The forged texts. He looked away. You weren't just exposing them, she continued. You were creating chaos. Colby stood up, pacing. I never lied to you. No, she said. But you manipulated them. You controlled their downfall. They earned it, he snapped. I know. Harper's voice didn't rise. But that doesn't mean we have to become them. He stopped. For a second, he wasn't the strategist. He was just a father, caught in the mirror of his daughter's eyes. What else did you see? Harper handed him a folder. Inside, screenshots of Colby's surveillance logs. Conversations recorded between Lyndon and her therapist. Files he never showed Harper. You had every right to be angry, she said. But I needed to be sure you still knew where the line was. He sat down, heavy. And for the first time since it all began, he looked tired. Did I cross it? He asked, quietly. Harper didn't answer. Instead, she stood, walked to the door, and paused. I'm not afraid of what you did, Dad. I'm afraid of what it's turning you into. Then she left him sitting there, the flames flickering behind him. The war had ended. But now, Colby had to face something far worse. What was left of him in the ashes? It was 2 a.m. when Colby reopened the file folder Harper had left behind. One document caught his eye, a scanned set of therapist's notes. Lyndon's, from over a year ago. Session logs. Emotional cycles. A reference to moral erosion, to fear of failure, to using intimacy for power. But one line hit like a hammer. I'm not in love with him anymore. I just don't know how to leave. Colby closed his eyes. That had been months before the affair began. Before the hotel rooms. Before Dean. She was already gone. He just hadn't seen it. He flipped to the next page. A note circled in red. I feel like I'm being watched, even when I'm alone. His hands stiffened. The date? Weeks before he started tracking her. She felt it. The house had become a trap long before he ever built one. Colby leaned back, chest rising slow, heavy. Harper had said it clearly. We became monsters. And now, sitting in the quiet with only his guilt for company, he finally saw what she meant. He hadn't just dismantled Lyndon. He dismantled the trust that raised his daughter. He walked outside, the cold night biting his skin. Pulled out his phone. Opened the encrypted server. One click would erase everything, all footage, recordings, drives, logs. Memories, too. He hovered over the delete button, then lowered the phone. Not yet. He still had one more thing to finish. Something deeper than revenge. Something harder. Redemption. Colby stared at the open medical file, the dim light from the cabin's lamp flickering against the edge of the paper. Procedure, D&C, incomplete miscarriage. Date, February 4th. Emergency contact, Dean Habridge. He read it again. Dean's name, not his. He rubbed his jaw, the weight of it all landing hard. This wasn't just betrayal, it was erasure. He hadn't just lost a child. He'd been removed from the narrative entirely. And worse, he never knew it happened. Lyndon had lied. Not just about the affair. Not just about the job. But about something sacred. He opened the flashback video Harper had archived. A small home clip from 5 years back. Lyndon was laughing in the kitchen, flour on her cheeks, baking with Harper. Colby stood in the doorway, filming quietly. The woman in the video wasn't this Lyndon. Back then, maybe she'd still loved him. Or maybe she'd just worn the mask better. He turned off the clip. The truth twisted deeper than any knife. In the morning, he returned to Portland and visited a small medical facility tucked between a gas station and a hardware store. He showed them the paperwork, asked for a sign verification. The woman behind the desk glanced up, guarded. "You related to the patient?" Colby paused. "No, I'm the one she didn't list." By evening, he stood by the lake near his old house. Alone, wind cold on his skin. There's a difference. Her hands were steady, but her eyes? Tired, like she hadn't slept clean in months. "I didn't start the fire," she added, "but I let it burn too long. That's on me." Colby gave a short nod. "You'll get your immunity. I'll make sure of it." Fiona stood, then stopped before walking away. "By the way, you weren't the only one watching her." Colby's brow creased. "What?" Fiona hesitated. Dean had her phone mirrored. Not just messages. Audio. Video. He was watching her, too. Long before you ever pressed record. Colby's breath caught. She looked at him one last time. Just because they were partners doesn't mean they trusted each other. And with that, she disappeared into the crowd. Colby sat back, tension running through his chest like wire pulled too tight. Everything he thought he knew? There were still layers left. The game wasn't over. Not yet. Dean sat alone in his penthouse office, blinds drawn, 2 duffel bags on the floor beside him. Each one packed. Burner phones, hard cash, 2 passports, 1 real, 1 doctored. His laptop pinged bank alert. Final account frozen. He shut it with a snap, grabbed his coat, and moved fast. His Jaguar roared to life in the underground garage. GPS already set to the Canadian border. Dean didn't care anymore. Headlines, lawsuits, internal reviews, they could all burn. He just needed to disappear. What he didn't know, Colby was already ahead of him. From a surveillance post 20 minutes north, Colby sat in a black SUV listening to a police scanner. A fetishute alert had just gone active. Harper's voice crackled over the headset. "He's moving." Ridge checkpoint flagged his license plate. Colby nodded. "Tell them to wait. Let him think he's getting away." At the border, Dean handed over his passport, casual. Fake smile. "Just a quick weekend getaway." The officer nodded slowly. Stepped back. Checked the screen. Then the quiet changed. 3 more agents emerged. One tapped the window. "Step out of the vehicle, sir." Dean blinked. "Why? What's going on?" "This way, please." By the time he realized what was happening, cuffs clicked around his wrists. Wire fraud. Obstruction. Corporate conspiracy. All of it, stacked like dominoes. Back in the SUV, Colby watched the update come through in real time. Dean Habridge, detained. In custody. Harper texted 1 word. Checkmate. Colby didn't smile. He just whispered, "And that's for my daughter." Because it wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about ensuring these men never touched another life again. It started with smoke. Thick, black, creeping under the doorframe of the garage like a snake. Colby woke to the smell before the alarm even blared. By the time he made it outside, barefoot, shirtless, the entire side of the cabin was in flames. The surveillance room, gone. Harper stood across the gravel driveway in her pajamas, coughing, eyes wide in the red glow. "Dad." Colby yanked her into his arms as fire engines howled in the distance. "You okay?" "I saw the light. Woke up to the crackling." They both turned toward the blaze. Everything footage, backups, drives torched. Later, as firefighters soaked the remains, one approached him. No electrical signs. "Looks like an accelerant." Gasoline traces near the door. Colby's jaw locked. It wasn't an accident. He didn't say it out loud, but Harper saw it in his eyes. It was her, she whispered. Or someone she sent. Colby scanned the trees, the shadows. "She's cornered," he said. "And when people like Lyndon get cornered, they burn things." By sunrise, only ash remained. The war room, their evidence vault, was a pile of scorched metal. But Colby wasn't shaken. He stepped over a beam, looked at the wreckage, and said calmly, "She just gave us permission to end this our way. Because when you burn down the evidence, All that's left is confession. Colby hadn't touched the safe in years. Tucked behind the false panel in the closet, it still smelled like old cedar and oil. He dialed the code from memory. November 9th, '02, Harper's birthday. Inside, his discharge papers. A lockbox of medals. And a matte black Sig Sauer. He turned it over in his hand, the weight cold and familiar. Harper stood in the doorway. You planning something? Planning nothing, he said. Preparing for anything. She didn't blink. You said this wouldn't get violent. It won't, he replied, tucking the gun into a duffel. Unless she makes it that way. Harper stepped closer. You think she sent someone? Colby nodded. Or paid someone. Either way, she wanted everything wiped. Harper's eyes narrowed. But why now? She already lost everything. No, Colby said. She hasn't lost me yet. Harper's breath caught. She's not trying to escape. She's trying to bait me. Force me to react. Colby zipped the duffel. But I'm not going to shoot her. Harper exhaled. Then why bring the gun? He looked at her. Because sometimes, showing you're ready for war is what keeps you from having to fight it. Later that night, he placed the duffel in the truck. Checked the rear camera. Full sweep of the driveway. Clean. But something still buzzed under his skin. Not fear. Not anger. Finality. He turned off the garage lights. Locked the door. Then paused. A single envelope lay on the floor, just inside the door. He hadn't seen it before. No address. Just one word on the front, in sharp, perfect cursive, confession. The next morning, the cabin felt colder than usual. Harper was already dressed when Colby walked into the kitchen. A duffel at her feet. Her laptop zipped up. I'm going to Aunt Clara's for a while, she said. Colby paused. You okay? She nodded. Yeah, but I need distance. From all this. He crossed his arms, leaning against the counter. You think I've gone too far. I think you got lost in it, she said softly. And I don't want to see you fall any deeper. Silence hung thick between them. I love you, he said. You know that, right? I know, she said, picking up her bag. That's why I'm leaving before either of us becomes someone we can't come back from. He stepped forward, trying to find words. Harper placed a hand on his chest. This started because you wanted to protect me. But somewhere along the way, it became about punishment. She paused. You've punished them, Dad. You've won. But now you need to choose whether you want to keep destroying or start rebuilding. Colby's chest tightened. She opened the door, hesitated, then added, when you're ready to forgive yourself, call me. Then she was gone. Colby stood in the empty kitchen, her echo hanging in the air. He looked down at the table. The envelope still sat there, unopened. Confession. But not his. Hers. Colby pressed play. The video was simple. Lyndon in what looked like a hotel room, facing the camera directly. No makeup. No filters. Just raw, exhausted skin and a flickering desk lamp behind her. Her voice came slow. If you're watching this, it means you already burned everything else. She shifted, breath shaky. I never meant for it to go this far. I swear that. I didn't love Dean. I used him. I let him use me. I was angry and selfish and scared. She paused, blinking back tears. But the worst part? I don't even know when I became a liar. It wasn't one big moment. It was hundreds of small ones. Tiny betrayals. Compromises. Justifications. She looked up, eyes hollow. I betrayed our daughter. I betrayed you. Her fingers trembled as she reached for a glass of water. I wanted to confess before. So many times. But I thought if I told you everything, you'd hate me. She gave a sad laugh. I was wrong. You already do. She leaned in, voice barely above a whisper. But I don't hate you. I admire you. You held everything together while I was tearing it apart. A pause. I don't expect forgiveness. But I need you to know. I never stopped loving you. Then she reached forward. The screen flickered to black. Colby sat frozen, eyes fixed on the screen. It wasn't redemption. It wasn't enough. But it was something. For the first time, she hadn't lied. And that made it hurt even more. By Friday morning, the news hit louder than ever. A breaking segment ran across 3 major networks. Former HR director implicated in whistleblower cover-up scheme, and below that, exclusive. Internal testimony confirms long-term workplace misconduct. Fiona's voice echoed through the studio. Blurred face. Digitally altered voice. but unmistakably clear in message. I watched it happen. Lyndon Raines signed off on every suppression form, every payout. She made interns disappear with paperwork and silence. Colby stood in his cabin, eyes on the screen. Harper had sent him the link that morning. No text, just the headline. He poured his coffee slowly, letting the moment sink in. Lyndon's name wasn't just in whispers now. It was in headlines, press conferences, and DOJ inquiries. A reporter asked the key question at a live event. Will formal charges be brought against Ms. Raines? The spokesperson didn't flinch. Her case is under active review. Expect movement within the week. Colby turned off the TV, not because he didn't care, but because he finally felt something he hadn't in months. Closure. Outside, cold wind rushed through the trees. The forest still burned orange with autumn, but everything felt still, quiet. Then his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He stared at it. Let it ring. Let it go to voicemail. He already knew who it was. And this time, he wasn't chasing anymore. Let them come to him. The courthouse file clerk looked confused. I'm sorry, but I don't see any official filing under your name. Colby blinked. What? The clerk double-checked. No finalized divorce. Just an intent filed 3 years ago. Then nothing. Colby felt the floor shift beneath him. She never filed it. The woman shrugged. Happens more than you'd think. Colby stepped outside into the chilly air, dazed. He sat on the courthouse bench, staring at the paper in his hand. Still legally married. Lyndon had kept that string tied, even while sharing hotel rooms with another man. Maybe she'd thought she could fix it later. Maybe she never really let go. Maybe she wanted control until the very last minute. He called his lawyer the same hour. Full submission. I want it done in 10 days. You're sure? I'm sure. That night, he pulled the ring from the top drawer where he'd hidden it during the first month of the betrayal. Not to wear it. To finally put it away. He opened a small metal lockbox, dropped the ring inside, and shut it tight. Lyndon's signature was still on their marriage license. But soon, it'd be the only thing of hers left with his name on it. Colby received the notice in a plain white envelope, no return address. He slid it open. Inside, a federal court document stamped clean. United States versus Dean Halbridge and Lyndon Raines charges, fraud, corporate conspiracy, obstruction of justice, misuse of authority. Trial date, 3 months out. Testifying witnesses listed below. Colby Raines, Harper Raines, Fiona Ortega. He stared at the page, heart slow, steady. It was real now. No more back channels. No more surveillance. No more smoke and mirrors. It was going to court. He drove to the lake that night, the one he and Lyndon used to visit before Harper was born. They'd skipped stones there once, fought in whispers, held hands in silence. He stood at the shoreline now, tossing a rock, one ripple at a time. He wasn't angry anymore. He wasn't trying to hurt her. He was just done protecting her. That's what the trial meant. It wasn't vengeance. It was truth, under oath. And he was ready for it. 3 days later, Colby received a visit. A woman in a charcoal suit knocked on the cabin door just after noon. Mr. Raines? Yeah. I'm representing Mrs. Raines in an advisory capacity. May I speak with you? Colby hesitated, then opened the door wider. She handed him a sealed folder. Inside, a settlement offer. Mrs. Raines would like to avoid trial if possible. She's willing to sign full financial forfeiture, drop any remaining claims, and issue a public statement, in exchange for your agreement not to testify. Colby stared at the offer. Clean, legal, strategic. She's scared, he said. The woman didn't respond. She wants a back door out. Still no answer. He closed the folder slowly. You can tell her this. I'm not out for revenge anymore. The woman nodded. But I'm not giving her peace she didn't earn, he finished. He handed the folder back, untouched. The lawyer turned to leave, but Colby stopped her. Tell her something else. She paused. He looked her in the eyes. I forgave her the second she confessed. But forgiveness doesn't stop justice. Then he closed the door behind her. Because this was never about destroying a woman. It was about finishing a war she started, with lies, silence, and secrets. And justice wasn't just about prison. It was about accountability. The federal courtroom was cold. Not just in temperature, but in tone. White walls, Polished wood. No emotion. No sides. Just facts. Colby adjusted his collar and sat quietly beside his attorney. Harper was 3 seats down, her hair tied back, dressed in muted gray. Eyes calm. Shoulders straight. She didn't look scared. Dean sat at the opposite table, freshly shaved, wearing a suit 2 sizes too large for his frame. He looked smaller now. Not powerful. Not dangerous. Just exposed. And next to him, Lyndon. She didn't look at Colby. Not once. Hair in a tight bun, black jacket pressed, fingers twitching slightly in her lap. The bailiff called order. Proceedings began. The prosecution laid out the opening narrative. Systematic cover-ups. Sexual misconduct silence. Asset shielding. Intentional corporate fraud. Dean's name came up first, but Lyndon's name followed every sentence. She hadn't orchestrated it, but she enabled it. Colby watched, unmoving. Every word was old to him. He'd lived this story for nearly a year. But seeing it now, laid bare in a federal record, hit different. This wasn't revenge anymore. It was accountability. Fiona was the first to testify. Calm. Clear. Devastating. Yes, Lyndon Raines signed off. Every time. She knew. The defense didn't deny the actions. They tried to question motive. Isn't it possible she was pressured? Fiona's voice didn't flinch. She wasn't. She was the pressure. Colby stole one glance at Lyndon. Her eyes had dropped to the table, and for the first time, maybe even she realized, this wasn't going away. The second day brought Colby to the stand. He adjusted the mic once, kept his voice level. The attorney approached slowly. Mr. Raines, were you aware of your wife's role in the internal payouts during your marriage? Yes, Colby said. After I started investigating on my own. Why did you do that? Because things stopped adding up. Her hours, her excuses. And I've been trained to recognize patterns. What patterns did you notice? He listed them. Hotel logs, expense reports, deleted messages, digital trails. And when you realized she was involved in hiding workplace abuse, what did you do? I documented everything. Quietly. Because I didn't want to believe it. Not because you were building a case. Colby looked straight ahead. I wasn't trying to punish her. I was trying to stop something worse from continuing. The defense tried to shake him. So you're saying this isn't personal? It started personal, he admitted. But now, it's about the people they hurt. He could feel Lyndon watching him now. But he didn't turn. You were married. You had a daughter. You still chose to expose her. I chose not to protect a lie. Silence fell. And when Colby stepped off the stand, the gallery didn't whisper or react. They just watched him walk past his former wife like she was a stranger. And in that moment, she was. Harper's hands were steady on the stand. She looked like herself, not hardened, not shaken, just grown. The attorney smiled gently. You're only 17, Ms. Raines. You don't have to be here. I want to be. Why? Harper took a breath. Because I watched this happen in my house. I watched it break my parents. I watched my mom lie with a smile. And I want people to understand that silence isn't neutral. It's violent. A murmur spread in the room. The attorney let the silence hang. Did your mother ever tell you what she was doing? Harper shook her head. She told me it was work. Long hours. Pressure. She always blamed the system. Do you blame her? Harper paused. I think she had chances. I think she had chances to come clean. To choose honesty. And she didn't. And what about your father? He didn't always make perfect choices, she said. But he didn't run. He faced it. The defense had no questions. And when Harper stepped down, she didn't look at either parent. She looked ahead. Because she wasn't there for them. She was there for herself. The 4th day of trial was the first time Lyndon spoke. She wasn't asked to. She stood on her own. Her voice trembled. Not from nerves. From something closer to collapse. I was wrong, she said. I didn't set out to hurt people, but I did. I looked away. I let it continue. Colby stared at her from the gallery. Stone-faced. I thought protecting the company was the same as protecting our future. But I lost both. Her hands shook. I broke my family. I broke trust. And I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed to say it. Out loud, before the verdict. The judge allowed the statement to stand. No one clapped. No one cried. But as Lyndon sat back down, the silence in the courtroom shifted. Not in sympathy, but in understanding. Because this wasn't a villain confessing. This was a woman unraveling beneath the weight of her own decisions. And for the first time, she wasn't hiding behind a title. She was just guilty. The jury filed in slowly. Lyndon didn't look at Colby. Dean wouldn't lift his head at all. 12 people. 2 years of investigation. 1 week of testimony. The judge asked for silence. The jury foreman stood. Count 1. Conspiracy to obstruct justice, guilty. Count 2. Suppression of workplace misconduct, guilty. Count 3. Financial fraud, guilty. The words echoed like hammer strikes. Lyndon's lips parted. Not to cry. Not to speak. Just to breathe, as if the air had been knocked from her lungs. Dean sat like stone. The final line. We, the jury, recommend maximum sentencing be considered for both defendants. And just like that, it was done. The courtroom didn't erupt. There was no drama. Only finality. Lyndon turned, eyes searching for Colby. For Harper. Neither looked back. Because it wasn't about watching her fall. It was about finally being free. Sentencing came a month later. Dean, 5 years, no parole. Stripped of assets. Blacklisted in the industry. Lyndon, 18 months. Lesser sentence, due to cooperation and mental health evaluations. Probation to follow. No return to corporate practice. Colby read the headlines without flinching. Harper texted one word that morning. Closure. He didn't reply. He just stood on the back porch, letting the sun rise across the trees. But closure doesn't always feel like celebration. Sometimes it just feels quiet. He sat alone that evening, poured a drink, and stared at an old photo on the mantel. All 3 of them. Smiling. Fake? Maybe not. Just gone. Harper called later that night. Hey. He exhaled. Hey, sweetheart. You okay? I think so. You coming to Claire's this weekend? He smiled. Wouldn't miss it. It wasn't joy. It wasn't victory. But it was peace. And that was enough. 3 weeks into her sentence, a letter arrived. Handwritten. No return name, but the cursive gave it away. Colby, there's nothing I can say that will undo what I did. I watched our family burn while I poured gasoline, and you still tried to carry the bucket of water. I didn't deserve that. I didn't deserve you. And I certainly didn't deserve Harper. But thank you for showing her that silence isn't strength. That truth, even when it hurts, matters. I won't write again. I won't ask for anything. But I needed you to know. I did love you. Maybe not the way you needed, but I did. I hope you find someone who never lets that love go to waste. Colby folded the letter once. Didn't cry. Didn't rage. He just slipped it into the lockbox next to the ring. Not as a memory, but as an ending. The cabin still creaked at night. The silence remained. But the air inside it didn't feel heavy anymore. Colby started rebuilding the garage. Not for surveillance. Not for war. Just for tools. Wood. Work. Harper visited every weekend now. She brought music, snacks, a book she was writing. He didn't ask what it was about. She didn't tell. But the writing made her smile again. And that was all he needed. One evening, as they sat by the fire pit, Harper asked, "Do you miss her?" Colby stared into the flames. "I miss the version of her that existed before I knew better." Harper nodded. "I think I miss that version too." They didn't say anything after that. Because some wounds don't bleed anymore. They just ache. And even that fades with time. The Rains family home had been sitting quiet for months. No lights. No voices. Just dust and echoes and shadows that never fully left. Colby parked outside late one evening. He didn't bring a bag. Didn't plan to stay. He just needed to see it. The lawn had overgrown. The porch creaked under his weight like it remembered every argument, every lie. He unlocked the door slowly and stepped inside. Same walls. Same paint. Same kitchen where Lyndon used to leave coffee brewing early, humming off-key. He didn't flinch at the memories anymore. He walked through the house like a museum. Not as a resident, but as a man paying his final respects. Upstairs, Harper's old bedroom was still untouched. Her bookshelf, crooked posters, that one stuffed bear she used to sleep with clinging to the corner of the bed frame. He smiled faintly. Not sadness, just memory. In the master bedroom, the bed was stripped bare. Just a frame now. He didn't step inside. Instead, he pulled open the closet, reached into the back corner and retrieved a shoebox. Inside, photos. Real ones. Glossy prints from vacations, birthdays, quiet weekends no one ever thought to post online. Lyndon looked happy in most of them. Genuinely happy. Colby sat at the foot of the stairs, flipping through the pictures under dim hallway light. One caught him. Harper, 6 years old, on his shoulders at the beach. Lyndon's hand on his back. All three of them, framed in golden light. Not fake. Just before. Colby stood, walked to the fireplace, and placed the box gently on the mantel. Not to burn it. Not to forget it. But to leave it where it belonged. Behind him. It was late spring when Harper called him out to Clara's place. Just a Saturday visit, or so she said. But Colby could hear it in her voice. Something had shifted. When he pulled up, she met him by the back fence, where the wild grass bowed to the wind. They leaned on the railing, side by side, watching the horizon glow orange. "I got the scholarship," she said quietly. Colby turned slowly. "What?" "Forensics. Full ride. For years. In Boston." He blinked. "You applied without telling me?" "I didn't want to unless it was real. I didn't think it'd happen." He let out a long breath, half a laugh. "Damn. That's incredible, Harper." She smiled. Then her face dropped slightly. "But it means I'll be leaving soon." He nodded. "I know." They stood in silence for a beat. Then Harper asked, "Do you think, all of this, everything we went through, do you think it made me harder?" Colby looked at her, long and honest. "No," he said. "It made you sharper, more awake, but not harder." She looked down. "Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever trust anyone." "You will," he said, "because you already learned who not to." Harper's throat tightened, but she didn't cry. Not anymore. She looked up at him. "You were right, you know, about silence, about what happens when you let people get away with too much for too long." Colby reached out, rested a hand on her shoulder. "And you were right too," he said, "about when to walk away." They stayed like that, father and daughter, not broken, not fixed, just real. And for the first time in years, nothing needed to be said next. Harper sat alone in her dorm room, a month into her new life. The city buzzed outside, car horns, students laughing down the sidewalk, someone playing music too loud 2 floors down. It was a different kind of noise, but it didn't overwhelm her anymore. She opened her desk drawer, pulled out a worn envelope she'd been carrying since the day she left. It wasn't addressed to anyone. It was a letter to herself. She unfolded it carefully. The ink slightly faded now, still legible. "To the girl who survived the fire, one day, you'll look back at the ashes and realize it wasn't just your house that burned. It was everything fake, everything untrue. And that's how you found your way forward. You didn't just survive it. You outgrew it." She smiled. Her professor had asked everyone to bring a personal object to class last week. Some kid brought a soccer medal. Another, a broken phone. Harper had brought this letter, and she told them, "I don't carry this to remember the pain. I carry it to remind myself that I came through something most people only read about." She folded it back and placed it under her pillow. Outside, her phone buzzed, a message from Colby. "Call when you can. Just planted the last tree by the fence. Thought you should see it someday." She replied, "I will. Soon." Because the war was long over now. And in its place, grew something stronger than revenge. Growth. The last chapter. The last frame. Colby sat on the porch steps at sunset, boots dusty, arms resting on his knees. The air was quiet. Clean. He glanced at the side yard. The garage rebuild was finally finished, but this time, it wasn't about war rooms and screens. It was a workshop now. Just wood, metal, tools. Peace. A small photo hung inside, taped near the door. Him, Harper, and a tree they planted together last fall. Her smile said everything. She'd healed in places he never could. And that was enough for him. He lit a fire in the pit and watched the flames dance. There were no ghosts left. No recordings. No reports. No more lies. Just firelight. And one truth he finally accepted. You don't get back what they stole. You build something new with what they didn't break. Behind him, the cabin stood quiet. Ahead of him, maybe the rest of his life. But right now, he just watched the stars come out. Not because he needed answers anymore, but because he finally knew how to live with the questions. And now I ask you, if someone lied to you like that, would you seek revenge? Or would you let karma do the work? Let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Seriously, city, country, whatever. I read every single one. If this story hit you, even once, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more epic revenge thrillers just like this one. We'll meet again in the next bold, emotional, twisted story. Until then, take care of your truth. And take care of yourself. See you soon. End.